Hello everyone, I hope you're doing good. In continuation to what we had discussed in written communication, today we shall discuss about memorandum. As to what exactly memorandums are, what is the format that we have to follow, what is the purpose of writing a memorandum, characteristics of a good memorandum, advantages of writing a memorandum, and of course the components that a memorandum has. Let's continue. Let us first define and understand what a memorandum is. A memorandum is a written message in business or diplomacy, which would mean that it is a part of written communication. We need to write the message or the information that we wish to share with people, and it is usually used in business or by the diplomats. It is a note regarding something for future use. So memorandums will never be written for something that has already occurred. In case you're writing a memorandum for something that has already occurred, it would want you to take action based on that now in future. Therefore, it's a note that has an information related to something that has to happen in future, and memorandum is abbreviated as memo. So this memo word is a universally accepted abbreviated form of memorandum. So you can always, instead of using memorandum as a whole, you can always use memo as a short word. Having said that, it is a written message, it would mean that it is an intra-office tool. Intra-office tool would mean that, as we've discussed earlier, a communication can be external or internal. External is when the receiving party, to whomsoever you're writing to, that party is not from the same organization with which you're associated. So this particular form of communication, which is memorandum or a memo, it is an internal communication. You will never be writing a memorandum for somebody who's outside your organization. Now, what is the reason behind this? This we shall discuss in a while. So this is an intra-office tool. Intra-office means within the office you can use it. And how would you do it? How would you use it in the office? Either you can share some information or message with a person who's a part of the organization, or to a certain department. So whenever you wish to exchange a certain information or pass on a certain information to a person or to a department of the same organization with which you are associated, you can go ahead with memorandum. Now, because it is used only for the internal communication, that is why we say that it is less formal. Because when you are giving such an information to people who are in the same organization, even if you don't follow the 7 principles of communication, that is 7 C's, or the written communication principles, in case suppose you haven't given enough clarity, because it's a short document as compared to the other form of written communications used in business, it is one of the shortest forms. You don't have to explain things, you don't have to elaborate on things. It has to be preferably written in bullets, which would mean you don't have to explain in detail about things. Why is that so? Because it is again an internal communication. So in case you're writing a memorandum to somebody, and if that somebody has any kind of confusions related to the information, he or she, because you're from the same organization, he or she can come to you and ask for the clarity. And because of this very reason, we say that it is less formal than a letter or than any other means of written communication that can be used in inside a business. Could be external or internal, but then specifically memorandum happens to be an internal communication tool. You cannot use this for external communication. And for this very reason, while we'll be discussing the format, we will see that we do not have any heading or the organization's name, neither does it have any signatory, because it is internal. Therefore that is not required as such. An effective memo clearly states the objective in the first sentence. Now, first sentence of any paragraph that you're writing is known as a topic sentence. So, whenever you're writing this memorandum, the very first statement that you write, this statement has to state the objective of writing a memorandum, the motive behind writing the memorandum, or the reason or the purpose why are you writing the memorandum has to be very clearly specified and written in the first sentence. It is not the first line, but the first sentence, and it could take 1 or 2 lines depending upon what kind of message are you trying to float across. be now discussing the purposes of writing a memo or a memorandum. A person writes a memo with some purposes in mind. It could be a single purpose or it could be multiple. And what can be the purposes for writing a memo? To inform somebody about something. For example, there is somebody new who has joined the organization. So you can float across a memo to n number of people who may want to have that information or for whom this information could be important and vital. So you can inform them as to this is the person who has joined new. If there is somebody who has left the organization and maybe that somebody was at a position wherein even if you continue to share your information without knowing that the person is still there with you or not, there would be a leak of information. So it could also be used to inform you about somebody leaving the organization. To inquire something, for example, you are a part of one department and you want to inquire something from the other department, so you can always opt for a memorandum to inquire something that has already happened. If you wished, if somebody is asking you to give you a brief overview of whatever processes have been done or whatever has been finished, or maybe you're asked to give a completion report or a partial completion report to somebody, you can always choose a memo for doing this. You can always give suggestions through a memo. You can remind people of something. For example, suppose I have planned a meeting to be that was maybe I've scheduled it on 20th of February, so I will give you a reminder memo which will state that it's a gentle reminder for you to know that the meeting is scheduled on 20th of February. So it could also be written to remind people of anything. It could also be used to instruct. So instruct could be, for example, suppose 20th of February, you are required to come prepared with XYZ things for the meeting. So I can always float the instructions that are to be followed while you're appearing for the meeting. So that for that very purpose, I can also use a memo. It can also be used to promote goodwill. How do you promote goodwill? Whatever achievement that the company has done, whatever good thing that any of the employee of the company has done, or the employer has achieved some important thing in his or her life, you can always write that, appreciate people for the things that they've done well. For all those reasons, if you're writing, it will promote a goodwill of the company. So in order to promote goodwill, you can always choose to write a memo to a certain person or to a department, anywhere around. And then, of course, if you have any ideas to communicate, you can always do that because it is within the organization. So if you wish to give your ideas or communicate your ideas to a number of people or a single person, you can do that using a memorandum. So for all these purposes, you can very conveniently within the organization choose a memorandum. A memorandum has a lot of advantages. Memorandum, because we are saying that it's an internal means of communication, therefore it is very quick because you need not go into the detail of everything. You can be very precise in writing things very concisely. You can write down the things without paying much of attention to whether the things are self-explanatory or not, because you know that anyways that memorandum is going to people from the same organization. So in case they have any clarity, they seek for any clarity, they can come to you or they can contact you through any of the means, through email or through memorandum or through telephone or through your extension or any other means. It is a convenient mode of communication. Why convenient? Because it does not take a lot of time. That is why it is convenient also. Things that are convenient to us, what are the things that are convenient? That are easy to work with or that are easy to formulate and draft. And because memorandum is an internal piece of communication, internal form of communication, and you don't have to follow very rigidly all the principles, therefore it is very convenient. Anybody who wishes to share some information can do that at his or her own, and you don't want any signatory, authorized signatory to sign it, because it again it's an internal communication, therefore also it becomes convenient and quick. It is inexpensive. Memos are used within an organization because it is an internal means. So you can use low quality paper. You can use the one side used papers also in case you wish to. And it helps in maintaining written records. This happens to be a benefit or advantage of every form of written communication that we'll be doing, because this in general is a merit of the written communication, that whenever you are opting for a written way of communicating, it in itself, it is acting as a written record for future reference use or as a legal document. Components of a memo. So components of a memo would mean what all parts does a memo have. I said that it is a short, it is a very short kind of communication, which would mean that whatever segments we have, we will not be writing in detail about anything. So in general, a memorandum in general has 6 segments to it. First is the heading segment, wherein we are writing to, that is, to whomsoever are you writing it, the recipient of the memo. It could be one person, one department, or multiple people. Then you write from. Who is writing a memo? That has to be, because we do not have any authorized signatory at the end. We do not close it by writing our name. Whosoever is writing, the person is not writing the name at the very end. Therefore, it becomes important that in the heading segment, that is in the very first few lines, you write down these basic information, that to whom it is intended to, who is writing it, from whose side has it been shared, the date has to be written in a complete format. What would be the format of the date? The date will always be written as first the date, that is, say, either you can choose the date first, that is, say, suppose 16th of February 2020, so you will write it as 16, then a space, and then entire spelling of February. You will not be putting the Feb as abbreviated form. It has to be February, that is February, comma, a space, and 2020. Or you can always write it as February space 16 comma 2020. This is a more preferred way of writing date. When you write the month first, the complete month first, space the date, and whenever you're writing the date, make sure that you are not writing any suffix. No th, rt, rd, st, etc. is to be written. So it only has to have the numeric date with no rd, st, etc. as a suffix, etc. at the end of any of the digit or the number that you're writing. And then you will have to separate it using a comma, and then write the full year, that is 2020. This is how usually we write the date. And then we need to write the subject. Now whenever you're writing the subject, this would mean that you're writing the reason why you're writing a memo, and it has to be very crisp. Crisp here would mean short, very concise and precise, and self-explanatory, so that once the reader reads it, he or she is clear that okay, the content has information about this. Because we do not have much of, we don't have to include a lot of detail, therefore it is required for you to write subject in a way that it is self-explanatory. The second part of the memorandum is the opening segment, wherein it, the first line would include the reason for writing and brief overview of the things. For whichever reason you're writing it, you need to write the brief overview. Now you will say that because subject also has the same thing, reason for writing a memo, and the the main purpose of writing an opening segment also is that you provide the reason of writing. Now the difference here would be that while you're writing the opening segment, you may use, like for instance, the language that we usually use, this is to inform you kind of phrase, right? So this can be used along with writing the reason, and you can then explain the reason. Subject, we are not explaining the reason. In the opening statement, in a line or two, you need to explain or give a brief overview of the reason for which you are writing, and then it will have a context. Context is, it is an event or a circumstance of the problem the writer is solving. If there is a problem for which the writer is solving, the writing the memo, you need to give the context of that problem. Having stated, quoted the reason of writing, that I'm writing for uh, maybe to invite you for a meeting. Now, why is this meeting being conducted is the context. So there you need to state clearly as to what is the reason behind me keeping that meeting that you're writing as the reason for writing a memorandum. The third segment is the task segment. That must include a mention of the steps for solving the problem. If whatever, for whatever reason, problem here does not mean a difficulty, it means the reason for which you're writing a memorandum. So for whatever reason you're writing, it has to have the task segment. If you want somebody to act upon it, you need to include the steps. What exactly do you want the person to do, and because you have to write it in written that this is desired of the reader, that means before writing the memorandum you need to plan accordingly. What exactly do you want the person to do? For example, suppose I say that graphist will be on, say, March 20th, and you are any kind of performance is solicited, suppose. Now this is the memorandum that I'm writing, so my task statement would be, I will have to give you what exactly do I want you to do. That would mean task statement would be, I'll maybe write down the categories. So we'll have singing in solo dual formats, we'll have dances in solo dual and group formats, and we can have different categories to it, like as to the regional dance, the folk dance, the rock, or any kind of, not rock exactly, but then any kind of other dance that we may have, the dance forms. And this would be the task. And how do you want the person to approach? How do you want the person to approach? You can give your entries by this date, or any other piece of information that you want the person to know, the important ones that can be written in the task segment. And then you need to summarize in the next segment. You summarize whatever things that you've already said. So this is a summary segment, and the summary segment is only written when you are using more than 2 sheets or 2 sheets for the memo. Memo usually is a short means of communication, wherein you will have to write it in a way that it is restricted to a single page. In case you have multiple agendas for which you're writing a memo, therefore in that case you'll have to write the summary segment, because then you have designated a lot of tasks in the task segment. And now in the summary segment, only when you are not writing a short memo, you're writing a lengthy kind of a memo, in that case you need to provide a summary. So if a memo is more than a paper, one must include a separate summary segment, which will help to the reader to understand the main idea. Also it will help to take the required steps. So you need to just summarize. So in case, why are we doing this? Because you're writing a lengthy document, and in case the reader does not have that kind of time, he can very directly switch to just read the subject, directly switch to the summary segment, and therefore from there he'll get to know that okay, this is what is required. And then we have a discussion segment. Discussion segment happens to be the longest part of a memo. It includes all the details supporting the idea. Whatever you're proposing, whatever you're writing the memo for, all the detail related to that will be written in the discussion segment. You need to start with the general information, and then from the general you need to go to more specific ones, and then it includes supporting ideas, facts, and research. So this is the discussion about the task. This segment, discussion segment, is not a mandate. Only when you're writing a memo to instruct, or only when you're writing a memo to report something, only then will you be writing the discussion segment. Because only if you're writing to inform, that you've already done that in the task segment, you need not discuss it in any detail any further. So this particular segment, say discussion segment, will only be written, one, when you're writing a lengthy document, two, when you are choosing a certain kind of memorandum format wherein you are required to make a discussion. And then finally we switch to the closing statement, wherein this particular segment always has to cater to how you end your memo, because we are not signing it off. We do not write thanks and regards or warm wishes, etc., or obediently yours kind of thing, or yours truly sincerely kind of things in the memorandum. We do not write. Therefore the last line has to be a very courteous line. For example, thank you in anticipation. That is it. Right. So this kind of ending has to be given in the closing segment. Make sure you make the completion of the task in an efficient and easy way, because memorandum is a short document. So if you choose some complex kind of vocabulary and jargons, the purpose gets marred. Therefore, choose the easiest way using which you can share the information, and try to lure the reader to make the positive action. And how would you lure or gather or grab the attention of the reader? By using different colors, by using different font, by bolding it, by highlighting things that are important. Maybe you can bold it or center line it, underline it, etc. So anything that you can do to, and keeping in mind of course that it's an official document, it's a business document, so you can't be very flashy with things, but yes, in the sober and sophisticated ways you can choose to be attention seeking. And then, if at all, for whatever reason you were writing a memo for, if at all that requires you for you to attach some attachments, you will, at the very end of it, you will have to write that enclosed are these documents, and then you can attach a number of documents with a memo. It could be any kind of list. For example, suppose you are inviting a lot of people from one department, so you can give the list of the people there. uh, Suppose in the two section you had only written the managers of the department XYZ. Now, in case you wish to explicitly write and mention that who all I require, then at the very end you can write the list of the attendees. You can have, in case you're giving a report of something, you can attach the graphs, tables, etc. to illustrate things in a better way, because memo cannot be that lengthy. Therefore, in case you need to write, you need to provide all those things, so that in case the reader wishes to have more information regarding it, he or she can choose to go through the attachments, and in case the person has understood all the things, then it is not a requirement for him to go through the attachments that you're making. Make reference for your attachments and add a notation for them. So this is what is required. In case you do not mention in the main memo that you're attaching the documents and do not give any notation to it, it will become very tricky for the person. He or she will not even care to look at the sheets that are attached. He or she will only be looking at the main content. So it is important for you to write down or to mention in the memorandum that you're attaching the, you're enclosing some attachments also. So this is how we will be writing a memorandum. Let us discuss the format of a memorandum now. Format is simple. The very first thing that you do is, in case you're writing a short memorandum, you'll have to make a box. This box, whenever you are writing anything within the box, this shows the reader that it is a small document, it's a short document. So it is only for the visual understanding of the reader that because the data is confined in a box, therefore it is a short document, and the reader should not anticipate or expect you to give in detail, give a detailed explanation to the things. Therefore, first thing that you do is make a box. At the top center of the box, you write memorandum. Now, how do you write a memorandum? Either you can choose this way, the way it is written in the slide, using a normal running letter format, wherein the first letter is capitalized and the rest are in the running form, or you can choose all capital letters, or you can always just write memo and not the entire word. So writing memo or memorandum and the way you're writing it is absolutely at your discretion. You can choose to write only memo in running or in all caps. You can choose to write memorandum in running or in all caps. That is your wish, but it has to be centralized. Without an underline will do. In case you wish to underline, you can, but then in case you're not, because anyways it is bolded, therefore, and when you're writing it manually, you need not bold it. Just writing a memorandum or memo at the very center would mean that this gives this information to the reader that this is memorandum. Therefore, a lot of detail will not be given. It will be to the point, precise. Then we write the heading segment wherein we were writing to, from, date and subject, and then we finally start writing the body of the memorandum. The thing that has to be noted here is there is no salutation, neither is there any signing off. Salutation means the way we are writing an application, we are writing respected sir or madam. So that salutation, respected sir or madam, or dear sir or madam, that is not to be written while you're writing a memorandum. Again, the reason being that it's a internal communication, and you can skip that because it's a short piece of information. So you can skip writing the salutation and the signing off. You don't need to sign off the document or write your name, the name of the writer, because you've already mentioned that in the from section. So this is basically the format of the memorandum. Now we'll be discussing a few examples. Before we discuss the examples, just a quick recap of the important point that you need to remember. First, you always have to use a very clear and specific subject line. It has to be crisp, precise, to the point, and self-explanatory, which is something that is very important. You do not have to waste the time of the reader by using lengthy memos. Lengthy memos would not solve any purpose. Then you can always switch to writing letters in case you wish to, because memo in general are short. So, and be clear and concise. That happens to be the sole crux of the thing. When you're writing a memorandum, it has to be very short. Don't you, because memorandum, the word memorandum would indirectly mean that's a short kind of message. Use active voice. Active voice means the doer of the action has to be given more importance. How do you use active voice? I am teaching you. I is the doer of the action. You are the receiver of the action. Action is teaching. I am teaching you. When I convert it into passive voice, it will be you are being taught by me. So the doer of the action has taken the last place. You don't have to do that. Whosoever is required to take the action has to be, the doer of the action has to be given the first place. That means more priority has to be given to the person who has to do the work. So active voice has to be always used. Use the first person. I, we kind of words are to be written. You don't have to use the second person or the third person. Be formal in your approach, because anyways, even if it is an internal document, it is still written in business. Therefore, do not use slangs or friendly words. Stick to the official vocabulary. One should use a careful and logical arrangement of information. In case you're writing a memo for multiple reasons, prioritize the things. Put them in a logical sequence. It should not be that the last part of the thing that you wish the person to do comes first and then you're going in a haphazard way. It has to be very logically drafted. If in case you're choosing to write multiple paragraphs, keep the paragraphs very short. Every paragraph that you're writing, because you're choosing paragraphs, would mean that you're writing for multiple reasons. One paragraph will cater to one reason. And whenever you're writing a paragraph, make sure that the first sentence, which again is the topic sentence, it gives an insight to the paragraph. One can use solid capitals and center indentation for important details. Like memorandum has been given a center indentation. You're writing it at the center place. Likewise, for anything that you want to lay emphasis on, that you want readers attention on, you can either make it as solid or capitalize it or bold it or put it as a center indentation. You can make it into italics or any other ways and means in which you can highlight it so that the reader gives his or her attention to that particular thing. Use bullets to make points. It is always, for any other piece of information also that you're writing in bullets is always preferred, because it brings that clarity to the mind of the reader, right? And when you're writing in bullets, you will not, of course, explain things. Bullet would mean that the caption that you're giving to that bullet will be self-explanatory. Always end the memo in courteous words. Don't ever be rude. Thoughtless memos are not to be written. Use text, fonts, and color to attract attention. In case you are writing a memo that somewhere wants the reader's attention, you can use some different ink for writing it if you're writing it manually. If you're drafting it through a computer or laptop or any other device, you can choose the fonts and color to attract the attention towards that particular point of word. And then it does not need a complimentary close or a signature, which is again very important. No salutations and no complimentary closure or signatures to be done while you're writing a memorandum. And this last point, which is proofread the content before sending, this again has to be followed whenever you're writing any piece of written document you're preparing. You always have to proofread before sharing the information. Now these are certain examples. You can read these examples, and reading these will give you an idea as to how are you supposed to do it. I'm reading the first one for you, and then the rest of the few you can always go through yourself. So the very first thing that you do is write memorandum. I have not drawn any outline here. You can always do that, because one, it looks attractive. Two, it gives an idea that it's a short piece of document confined to a certain area. So the first thing that we write is, and of course the other thing that I want to draw your attention to is, whenever we are writing at the heading segment, this to, from, date and subject, These things, they do not have any kind of sequence. You can choose to write to first, from next, and then date and subject. You can always write the date first, to, from, and subject, or any other sequence you can give. So there is no strict sequence that has to be given to the heading segment. You can choose any of these four to write at the first place, and then second and third and fourth. So the first thing that this memorandum writes is the date. Again, the date has to be written in the same format. First, the entire month, space, the date, comma, space, the complete year. And then every heading, every kind of segment that you do writing, like date, to, from, subject, they have to be ending with a colon. So date, colon, space, the content, to, colon, space, the content, etc. Content, this colon punctuation mark, this means that there is a list that follows. There is something that you're about to write. So there is no design to be made. A lot of people usually make designs. They will make a colon, and then in the middle of the two dots they will just make a hyphen as well. So that is not to be done. Every punctuation mark has a certain meaning of its own. Like for instance, this comma here means that there is a pause that has to be taken, a gap that has to be taken. A full stop would mean that you need to end here, you're starting something new. Therefore, no designs to be made, and that is to be strictly followed. And because you're doing business communication, that means the communication means that are used in official ways for communicating. So you need to strictly stick to the format. And the format says that every subheading, or whatever you can call it, the date, do, from, subject, every of these components have to be every of these components has to be ending with a colon and no other punctuation mark. And then to all employees. So this particular memorandum will go out to all the employees of a certain organization. Nowhere will you see the name of the organization, again because this is given to people within the same organization, and you need not tell people that you're there from which organization. Therefore, this memorandum or any other memorandum that you're writing will never be having any mention of the organization's name. From, you can write either your designation in case it is a known designation, you are a person of repute. Either you can choose to only write your designation, or you can write down your name itself, or you can choose both the things to mention here from the in the from section. And then subject, facilities update, very crisp, and it lets you know that okay, what is the memorandum all about. And then we start the body. Remember, no salutation, no writing dear all kind of things. Directly come to the point. I'm writing to inform you that over the next few weeks our kitchen area will be under construction as we remodel. As our company continues to grow, we feel it necessary to provide more communal dining space, and we are grateful to our facilities team for their hard work in making that happen. If you have questions or concerns regarding the remodel, you can access the full report here. And then here has been hyperlinked. So the moment the person clicks on here, there'll be a few attachments. In the meantime, we are sorry for the inconvenience in between the weeks of December 1 to December 31st. Please use the kitchen on the second floor if you need a microwave. We will also keep that kitchen stocked per usual with snacks and soda. Thank you for your cooperation. So this is how you're writing it. So very first segment is the heading segment, and then you're writing the other segments wherein you're very explicitly writing each and everything. You're changing the paragraphs because you're writing something different from the first paragraph, and every set the lines that you're writing, they're very short. They do not, you don't have to write in lengths about things. This is how a memorandum is written. And please notice that one, there is no organization's name. Two, there is no salutation, dear sir, respected sir, ma'am, etc. Things are not written. Three, there is no signing off. Nobody is signing this document. No mention at all of the person who's writing it at the end. You are only writing that information in the from section. So this is another example wherein this is to inform people. Inform people. As you can see the subject, it says James Rich's retirement party. So you're informing people of the party and inviting the people. And this memo is an interesting memo. I found it on the internet, and I thought it was very appealing and very informative as well. So here this memo is written, and the subject says tips for writing memos. If you can go through this, you will know that what exactly is required while you're writing a memo and what is to be avoided, and it gives you fair details of the things and clarity as well. And this memorandum is about customer presentation. So you this is about appreciating somebody for doing some good work. So this is how the different kinds of memorandums can be written and drafted. With this, we come to the topic memorandum. In the lectures that follow, we'll be discussing as to how to write notice and agenda and minutes of the meeting. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it and wish you a happy learning.